You thought I was done with the garden subfloor? Well, that's utterly preposterous. I can never finish discussing this upcoming Doors update, as the developers keep feeding me more content about it, and today is no exception to that. You see, recently, the Doors developers released an announcement stating how they're going to be taking a week-long break. However, at the end of this message, they posted two very cryptic emojis hinting towards the next update, those being a leaf and an axe. Now, we already know this is clearly a reference to the upcoming garden subfloor. And you may be thinking, Cheddar, you're seriously not going to make an 8-minute long video about two emojis, right? Right? Well, you'd be mistaken, as I am in fact going to be stretching these two tiny emojis into an 8-minute long discussion. In all seriousness though, despite seeming very insignificant at face value, there's a lot we have to unpack here in this teaser, as that second axe emoji has a ton of crazy implications, including what possibly could be a hint towards a brand new entity coming in the subfloor. So, with all of that being said, let's begin. Alright, so first I think we should get the leaf emoji out of the way for this teaser, as that one is pretty easy to decipher. Now, if you find this emoji familiar, it should be, as it has been used several times as a symbolic representation of the garden subfloor as a whole. This can be seen in this message where a player asks the developers for a hint about the next update, and they respond with this leaf image. It can also be seen in the very first teaser video showcasing the entrance to the subfloor, as the announcement with the video displays this emoji as well. The garden subfloor, as you can all probably guess, is themed around nature and vegetation, so seeing how a leaf is commonly associated with that theming, it's obvious why the developers would choose it to represent the update as a whole. However, what isn't obvious is the second emoji in the teaser, that being an axe. Now, I will admit, when I first saw this, I was kind of stumped. I mean, an axe? Really? What could an axe have to do with the garden subfloor? We have never seen this tool used before in the game. The majority of this video will primarily be focused on this axe, and through deductive reasoning I've come up with a handful of theories which could explain what this emoji actually means. Let's start with the most boring and obvious theory I have, that being the axe is actually meant to represent the shears. Now, as you probably know, shears are an item in Doors introduced in the Floor 2 update, and its primary purpose is to cut down vines either blocking certain passageways or loot containers. Now, there of course isn't a shears emoji. However, given how an axe cuts things like plants and vegetation in a similar manner as the shears do, I wouldn't be surprised if the axe emoji is meant to symbolize the shears item here. Based on the video teaser we received of the garden subfloor, we know it's probable we'll need shears, likely found in the courtyard, to cut the vines on this giant greenhouse door in order to open it and access the subfloor. This theory makes complete and perfect sense. Except it sucks. Not only is it completely predictable and therefore boring, but there also exists another flaw with it. Kind of. Like I had said before, although there isn't a shears emoji, there is one that could be used to represent the shears much better than the axe emoji, and that is the scissors emoji. Not only do scissors function more like the shears do, but they also visually look more like the item. Now, although it's possible the axe could still represent the shears item, I feel the developers would recognize the scissors would be a much better symbol, and therefore we are thinking about the axe all wrong. Okay. If the obvious answer isn't the correct one, what other possibilities could there be? Well, one possibility is it could be a hint towards a new item coming in the garden subfloor update. With any expansion to the game, new items are always going to be added, and an axe would fit right at home in the subfloor themed entirely around nature. The only issue is, how would it even function? Axes cut and chop things, a mechanic that the shears already have. This means that it's likely if there were to be an axe item, it wouldn't be one that could be used anywhere in the game like the crucifix or vitamins, but instead it would be a quest item. Quest items are the unofficial name I'm giving to items that don't really have any functional use, but instead are required to complete some sort of puzzle. Think of things like the room keys found in the hotel or the solution paper found in the library. Since the shears already have the role of an item that cuts and chops things, maybe the axe will be limited to only being used in certain areas, and players must use them to chop more sturdy and tough materials, such as wooden planks or fallen trees. For example, what if instead of a typical locked room, some doors in the subfloor would be blocked off by wooden planks? and you'd need to find an axe in the room to chop them off and open the door. Something like this I feel could be implemented, and that would explain the presence of the axe emoji in this teaser. On the topic of this axe being an item in particular, another theory I have revolves around it being used as a weapon. Essentially, throughout the game, players can find this strange, almost sentient vine creature hiding within various rooms, and this has led the community to believe it will take a larger role in the garden subfloor. Now, I myself have made many theories over this vine, but to summarize them all, I believe that they will be some type of major antagonist or boss in the new subfloor, and that means the player would have to defeat them. Now, given how we know axes tend to chop more stronger materials than shears do, I feel that this hypothetical axe item, instead of being a replacement for the room key, could be the weapon players use to take down this giant vine creature. This, of course, is more on the speculative side for this axe, but I feel it could work, especially given how the axe emoji is pointing towards the leaf emoji, as if it is cutting it down. And given how this giant vine creature is likely to be a big part of the subfloor itself, it's possible these two emojis could represent an axe item being used to slay the vine creature, which I feel could make sense. Still though, that is one of the more outlandish theories I have, but we have one more to cover, and it revolves around a potential new entity we may see in the subfloor. Dear viewers, meet the Groundskeeper. Now, some of you may be familiar with this entity, but basically, prior to the release of Doors, a handful of characters that were eventually cut from the game were actually leaked to the public, and one of them was this humanoid entity referred to as the Groundskeeper. Now, we only received untextured and uncolored meshes of their appearance, but based on these meshes, they appear to be a tall ghost-like scarecrow with what appears to be vine-covered chains for arms. Most notably, however, they wield a massive scythe, a tool which, although doesn't have its own emoji, does resemble an axe and functions similarly to one. Now, the Groundskeeper concept and design fits right at home in the garden subfloor. A groundskeeper, by definition, is one who maintains the natural beauty of a piece of land, such as a garden, and the entity itself even has vines wrapped around their arms and looks like a scarecrow. Now, this model is very, very old. It was made before Doors even released, but I feel a revamped version of it could definitely be implemented into the subfloor, and given how its scythe does resemble an axe, it could definitely be what this emoji is referring to. Now, as for what the Groundskeeper would actually do in the subfloor, I feel it could be some type of boss entity or one that is recurring, like Rush Your Eyes. Either way, I definitely feel their massive scythe would be used as a weapon against the player, as that would make for some horrifying encounters. For a moment, just imagine this ghost scarecrow thing comes barreling towards you swinging this giant weapon. That would be quite scary. I can definitely see them being a welcome addition to the game after being scrapped for so long. And with this theory being added to the list, it means we have 3 possibilities for what this axe emoji could mean. Either 1, it could represent the shears, which is kind of lame. 2, it could represent a new item coming in the garden subfloor, one either used for a more tame or more violent purpose. Or 3, it could represent the scythe that the scrapped Groundskeeper entity holds, which would be a welcome character addition into the subfloor with some design reworks, of course. Overall, I feel this is a good set of possibilities for what these emojis could represent, and I can't imagine what else it could be. So, I guess we did it, guys. I managed to stretch just 2 emojis sent by the developers into an 8-minute long theory video. Give yourselves a pat on the back for making it this far. In all seriousness though, I am quite curious as to what the emoji does mean, and even though I've exhausted all my predictions for what I think it could foreshadow in the upcoming garden subfloor update, I don't think you viewers have. Yeah, that's right, I'm putting the spotlight on you guys. So if you have any additional theories as to what the axe could mean, leave it in the comments. I'll say though that I'm definitely hoping it means the Groundskeeper is coming to the game, as I really like the concept of their design, and I think they'd be a perfect addition to the subfloor. Anyways, with all of that being said, thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.